For many years, Bruce Willis sprinted over buildings, confronted armed threats, and spoke dialogue that etched itself into our shared cultural awareness. He seemed intrepid, indomitable, and greater than reality. At least, that was the perception. Yet, at a certain point, the individual behind the icon started to diminish, not from public view or the media's eye, but from language, from conversation, from the very essence of how he was known. We still saw the smiles, the public engagements, and the images of him with relatives, joyful in the bright outdoors. Nevertheless, a change was palpable. Supporters sensed it initially, a look in his gaze, a shift in his motion, a slight hesitation in his dialogue that hinted things were not right. The industry noticed it subsequently. Silent looks, quiet discussions on film locations, and speculation dismissed as mere aging or fatigue. However, the reality, the actual reality, was profoundly more devastating. This chronicle details Bruce Willis, the figure who rescued us in films, evoked both humor and sorrow, and met incredible challenges with tenacity and appeal. And today, the globe observes as he confronts the most universal struggle imaginable. Absent of pyrotechnics or action sequences, just existence. It is both magnificent and heartbreaking. The farewell process was underway, and we were all completely unprepared. Prior to Bruce Willis achieving widespread recognition, before Die Hard or The Sixth Sense, before the celebrity, the humor, and the acclaim, there existed a youth from a modest hometown battling to be heard in an environment that seemed deaf to him. Bruce Willis entered the world on March 19, 1955, in Idar Oberstein, West Germany. His father, David Willis, served as a U.S. serviceman, deployed abroad, while his mother, Marlene, was employed at a bank. Upon the family's relocation to New Jersey, young Bruce's environment comprised a blend of structure, affection, and subdued insecurity. He was not the self-assured, witty individual we would later recognize. During his childhood, Bruce contended with a pronounced stammer. Language emerged fragmented, jumbled, and shaky, compelling him towards quietude much of the time. Yet, even during these periods of exasperation, an internal drive persisted, a desire to articulate, to be acknowledged, to engage. Academics proved challenging. He endured frequent mockery and was commonly misunderstood. Yet Bruce found his refuge not through defiance, but through acting. The theater evolved into his safe haven, a domain where language moved fluidly, and the youth who stammered disappeared under the lights. It was during his secondary school years that he found a life-altering realization. As he embodied a role, his speech impediment vanished entirely. Performing grew beyond a craft. It was a remedy, a release, a method to regain his articulation. Following his schooling, he meandered through various occupations: security work, bartending, and private detecting, the kinds of manual labor roles that would eventually characterize his cinematic persona. Yet, undergirding all this, he held a steadfast ambition to succeed as a performer. He moulayed New York City, residing in cramped flats, acting in off-Broadway shows, and serving in restaurants to get by. Every evening, he observed the city's illumination, promising himself that eventually those lights would recognize him. The public was unaware, but a hero was taking shape. Not one originating from graphic novels or fate, but one forged from tenacity, endurance, and a stubborn refusal to capitulate. And presently, the globe would witness precisely what such fortitude could achieve. It was not a major cinematic hit or an action movie that initially brought Bruce Willis stardom. Instead, it was a television program, a romantic comedy specifically. In 1985, a largely unrecognized bartender from New York City attended a tryout for an upcoming ABC show titled Moonlighting. The part was designed for a sophisticated, refined investigator. In contrast, Bruce entered sporting an earring, with disheveled hair and a smile that seemed to defy the atmosphere. The showrunners perceived an unanticipated quality: magnetism. It wasn't an artificial charm, but the type that infused every piece of dialogue with vitality. When Bruce secured the part of David Addison alongside Sybil Shepherd, the result was dynamic. Their interaction was visceral, authentic, and erratic. He wasn't merely performing, he was vibrant, each line imbued with cleverness, defiance, and heart. Moonlighting erupted as a massive cultural event. Reviewers offered high praise, and the audience adored the quick-witted investigator who defied convention. Almost instantly, Bruce Willis transformed into a nationwide star. Yet his distinction lay in the balance: the comedy, the relatability, the exposure beneath the swagger. He lacked the appearance of a flawless Hollywood icon. He resembled us, imperfect, amusing, and brave. Toward the end of the 1980s, this relatable appeal attracted studio executives seeking a fresh face for a dangerous, high-cost action movie concerning a police officer isolated in an LA high-rise. Initially, Bruce Willis seemed to be an unsuitable selection. He was not a muscular action figure or a combat expert. He was just Bruce, caustic, engaging, and relatable. But that is precisely what made him ideal. As Die Hard debuted in 1988, audiences encountered John McClane, and the action genre was permanently altered. Viewers didn't see a superhuman, they saw a man hurt, struggling, and frightened, yet persevering nonetheless. This relatable vulnerability, this everyday heroism, became Bruce Willis's hallmark. The individual who formerly stammered found the world captivated by every utterance. And with Hollywood's spotlight intensifying upon him, nobody, not even Bruce, could foresee the darkness that would eventually encroach.
As the initial preview for Die Hard reached cinemas in 1988, not many anticipated the movie would evolve into a cultural landmark. The action genre then was controlled by invincible protagonists, grandiose characters such as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, whose physiques and catchphrases characterized an era. Bruce Willis, in contrast, seemed more akin to an average person than an elite warrior. Celebrity doesn't merely illuminate, it consumes. Following Die Hard, Bruce Willis was abruptly ubiquitous. He appeared on magazine fronts, in late-show interviews, and received movie proposals from all quarters. His identity by itself was enough to ensure cinematic success. Yet this was accompanied by stress, and stress led to fractures. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, Bruce's professional life ascended with blockbusters like Pulp Fiction, Armageddon, and The Fifth Element. He transformed into an international sensation. He was the hardened man possessing deep kindness. He was the actor who could evoke both humor and sorrow in a single moment. Yet the greater his ascent, the more isolating it grew. The industry required Bruce Willis to be perpetually the calm, self-assured, invincible protagonist. However, off-set, he was just Bruce, an individual seeking tranquility in an environment that never paused. He experienced periods of depletion and insecurity. Several movies did not resonate with viewers or critics. Reviewers started to critique his decisions, and rumors of his dissatisfaction appeared in the press. For someone who constructed his persona on authority and confidence, these instances of doubt struck more forcefully than any cinematic detonation. Nonetheless, he never reacted angrily in public. He managed critique with wit, maintaining that familiar smirk and composed voice. Yet intimate companions understood the relentless expectation to be the protagonist was eroding him. Bruce's private affairs were also subjected to intense scrutiny. His partnership with actress Demi Moore, among the most celebrated pairings in the industry, endured ceaseless public examination. The pair, despite authentic affection and shared regard, ultimately separated in 2000 following more than 10 years of marriage. However, astonishingly, they maintained their friendship. Their priority remained their family, their children, and preserving a connection that went beyond celebrity or media reports. Even amidst the turmoil, Bruce discovered solace in the most basic activities. He enjoyed moments with his children, preparing meals, playing his guitar, or retreating to the serenity of his Idaho residence. He was not an individual who required public attention. He was a person attempting to recall his identity separate from it. In conversations, he sometimes alluded to this. Celebrity is peculiar. You strive intensely to achieve it, and upon attaining it, you find it fails to satisfy the voids you anticipated. It was in this time frame that Bruce started leaning toward parts that reflected a more profound, reflective aspect. He played individuals who were damaged, insecure, or tormented. Movies like The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable exposed levels of emotion and sensitivity that viewers had not previously seen. Beneath the action hero exterior always existed a subdued man, introspective, empathetic, and keenly aware of life's precarity. Yet, even while endeavoring to redefine his image, an internal alteration was occurring. It was a gradual, unseen transformation that remained hidden for now. A quietness that in time would evolve into a much more shattering reality. Well before Bruce Willis emerged as one of the industry's most familiar figures, he was fundamentally a musical artist. The majority of admirers recognized him as John McClane, but a smaller number knew the person destroying structures on screen was also a dedicated blues singer after hours. Music perpetually remained his primary passion, a mode of articulation free from screenplays or lenses. During the 1980s, capitalizing on his moonlighting celebrity, Bruce issued his first record, The Return of Bruno. The album was partly satirical and partly a sincere tribute to the blues and soul sounds that influenced his upbringing. This album also included work with iconic artists like The Temptations and Booker T. Jones. Astonishingly to all, it was not a self-indulgent endeavor. It was genuinely skilled. His vocals possessed a gritty, soulful genuineness that seemed deeply authentic and experienced. Tracks like Respect Yourself ascended the rankings, demonstrating that Bruce was a capable artist beyond his acting career. But for Bruce, the goal was never celebrity or recognition. Music was the sphere where he felt truly at ease. performing live, holding his harmonica. He was not the celebrity or the action protagonist. He was just Bruce, the young man from New Jersey who once stammered but found his rhythm through music. He frequently played with his group, the Accelerators, in intimate settings throughout the United States. These shows lacked intense lighting or formal arrivals, featuring only the sound of instruments, the audience's enjoyment, and the man absorbed in the performance. For attendees who witnessed his live shows, the experience was memorable. A genuine happiness shone in his expression, the kind of happiness that cannot be faked.
As time progressed, Bruce persistently revisited music during breaks from movie productions. Despite his massive success in the film industry, he consistently made time for the activity that truly restored him. This constituted a subtle defiance, evidence that his identity transcended the characters he portrayed. Privately, relatives and companions often noted that music served as his remedy. When existence seemed overwhelming, he sought refuge in it. After the filming concluded, he rediscovered his center through those recognizable harmonies. In retrospect, those intimate performances, evenings filled with blues, amusement, and melody, feel exceptionally meaningful today. They offered insights into an individual who understood existence centered not on celebrity or wealth, but on engagement and happiness. Because while society required Bruce Willis to be invincible, music affirmed his right to be simply human. Toward the end of the 1990s and the start of the 2000s, Bruce Willis had evolved beyond an action star. He was a narrator. In 1999, he headlined The Sixth Sense, a psychological drama that would permanently alter the course of his professional life. Helmed by M. Night Shyamalan, the movie uncovered a different aspect of Bruce, subdued, damaged, and profoundly relatable. His performance as Dr. Malcolm Crowe, an individual contending with inadequacy and salvation, astonished viewers. This was not the Bruce Willis defined by detonations and gunfire. This was the Bruce Willis of quietude, feeling, and self-examination. The movie emerged as a sensation. Reviewers lauded his portrayal as among his best, and Bruce himself appeared revitalized. He had discovered a method to translate his inner complexity into his craft, engaging viewers on a deeply personal plane. This partnership with Shyamalan persisted in movies such as Unbreakable, 2000, and Glass, 2019. Both examine topics of sensitivity and endurance, concepts that seemed nearly predictive when seen from the perspective of his subsequent life. Bruce was no longer pursuing celebrity. He was pursuing significance. He started selecting parts that aligned with his own values, from Looper to Moonrise Kingdom, from Sin City to Red. These were individuals depicted as maturing, thoughtful, occasionally damaged, but never vanquished. Away from the set, he became increasingly introspective. Companions observed he discussed the industry less and existence more, focusing on the precariousness of well-being, the virtue of relatives, and the necessity of remaining humble. During his leisure time, he was with his wife and children, frequently withdrawing to their Idaho residence, distant from the glare of Los Angeles. In that location, he would trek, play his harmonica, and organize intimate family events. He was characterized by a love for simplicity. He remarked in one discussion, "Reflecting now, the films aren't my primary thought. It's the joy, the periods I spent agonizing over trivialities. I'd advise my younger iteration to decelerate." This introspective quality started to mold not only his profession, but his entire character. He ceased to be the industry insurgent, the hardened figure, or the megastar. He was Bruce, an individual content with his accomplishments, appreciative of his experiences, and silently conscious that his narrative was approaching its conclusion. But, concurrently, faint alterations started to manifest. Shifts minor enough to miss, yet substantial enough that his inner circle could not disregard them. The individual who formerly was so astute, so rapid, so authoritative, was starting to recede into quietude. It started gently, forgotten dialogue during filming, extended hesitations between scenes. Initially, nobody paid much attention. After all, Bruce Willis had been active in cinema for more than 40 years. Exhaustion, pressure, and maturation could account for many things. Yet as time progressed, a sense of unease developed. Filmmakers began noticing his increased requests for dialogue cues. Fellow actors murmured that he appeared detached, as though preoccupied. Many attributed it to professional exhaustion, the expected deceleration of a person who had dedicated immensely to his profession. But Bruce's intimate circle, his wife, Emma, his children, his longtime companions, started to perceive a more profound issue. There were instances where he appeared lost, grasping for language that formerly flowed with ease. Dialogues became more concise, and public discussions grew infrequent. The person who previously brightened spaces with wit and vitality now seemed more subdued, more insular. To onlookers, it appeared he was merely savoring his time away from work. He was a cinematic icon, retrying to appreciate his domestic life. Yet privately, rumors started to spread. People within the business noted Bruce was declining significant parts, and that his representatives were restricting media engagements. Supporters also observed this. The glint in his eyes remained, yet it held a gentleness, suggesting an awareness the public lacked. Nonetheless, Bruce maintained his smile throughout. He kept acting in lower-budget movies, dedicating maximum time to his relatives. He made no public grievances, nor offered any clarifications. The individual formerly known for witty retorts now opted for quiet. And in a way, that quietude conveyed more than language might ever.
Emma started accompanying him to public functions more often, subtly assisting him and articulating on his behalf when necessary. His children shared images of family activities, strolls, meals, joyful times, but the text hinted at profounder themes: thankfulness, unity, and affection. It seemed that Bruce's entire circle understood that circumstances were shifting. The protagonist, who met all conceivable cinematic threats, was now confronting an issue far more universal, far more significant, one immune to physical strength or bravery. And although the public remained unaware of the situation, his loved ones already sensed it. It was the calm preceding a tempest destined to devastate people worldwide. The film industry flourishes on commotion, grand openings, media appearances, blinding photography,
and perpetual conversation. Yet within Bruce Willis's sphere, quietude had started to dominate. Movie by movie, year after year, his previously authoritative voice grew increasingly infrequent. There were no recent media discussions, no award show addresses, no talk show visits. His aura remained potent, yet it was more subdued, almost delicate. Filmmakers started modifying screenplays, reducing complex lines, and shortening production schedules. Crews, having collaborated with Bruce for many years, observed his difficulty recalling dialogue or timing, a situation previously unimaginable for the man who delivered extensive text with charisma and accuracy. Nevertheless, nobody discussed this openly. Motivated by reverence, his representatives and colleagues remained quiet. A tacit understanding existed in the industry. Everyone perceived an issue, but no one was willing to articulate it. During production, Bruce maintained his professionalism. Even as disorientation momentarily showed in his expression, he would mask it with a smile, occasionally offering a brief jest to ease the mood. Yet a sorrow was also present, a remote realization that an internal transformation was occurring. His spouse, Emma, started joining him on location more frequently. She would watch discreetly from off-camera, subtly assisting him when necessary. To external observers, this appeared as affection and help, which it was. Yet to their inner circle, it also represented defense. An element in Bruce's life was encroaching, gradually, unseen, and his entire circle sensed its presence. The public had no warning. It started with a subdued message, no media event, no discussions, no blinding lights, only brief sentences posted digitally by his relatives, penned with the gentleness of those bearing a burden too immense to voice. It was stated clearly: Bruce Willis, the individual who sprinted shoeless over shattered glass in Die Hard, the man who moved generations to humor, sorrow, and applause, was withdrawing from performing, not by his own desire, but because an internal force was gradually robbing him of the faculty that defined his identity. The announcement mentioned medical problems, difficulties with language, and a condition called aphasia. This was a term unfamiliar to most before that time, but one they would permanently recall afterward. For countless people, the information was initially hard to process. It seemed inconceivable. Bruce Willis, the action hero, the witty officer, the man who invariably found a solution, was forfeiting his capacity to articulate, to act, to engage. The astonishment spread through the entertainment industry like a shock wave. Performers paused their activities. Filmmakers gazed at their devices, incredulous. Talk show presenters found it difficult to comment. In a short time, accolades started overwhelming social platforms. Colleagues shared images from previous productions. Admirers recounted their initial viewings of Die Hard or The Sixth Sense. Several stated that Bruce was their youthful icon. Others merely expressed, "We appreciate the experiences." It was not only the announcement that caused devastation. It was the understanding that the individual who dedicated his existence to communicating globally through his craft was now being deprived of his articulation. The resulting quiet was distinct from any the industry had previously experienced, because on this occasion, Bruce Willis was not portraying a character. This was reality. The announcement of Bruce Willis's withdrawal from acting resounded worldwide, like a unified expression of sorrow. For a brief moment,
online activity paused, dominated not by rumor but by mourning. Excerpts from Die Hard, The Fifth Element, and The Sixth Sense inundated digital platforms. Admirers from all global regions shared moments that had characterized their formative years. John McClane navigating ventilation shafts, murmuring "Yippee-ki-yay" with his signature smirk. Malcolm Crowe murmuring, "I perceive deceased individuals." Individuals recalled not only the characters, but their own locations when they initially watched them. In lounges, cinemas, and late-night broadcasts, Bruce was a reliable fixture in their life. Performers who previously shared scenes with him commented gently in discussions. Samuel L. Jackson stated, "Bruce was more than an action protagonist. He was one of the most generous and amusing people I have ever collaborated with." Kevin Smith, who notably guided his performance previously, conceded with emotion, "I regret not telling him more frequently of his work's significance to me." The mourning was not confined to the industry, it was universal. Cab drivers in New York, servers in Berlin, emergency responders in Sydney, individuals who observed Bruce portray the relatable hero now experienced a sense of personal loss. At that juncture, Bruce Willis ceased to be merely a film celebrity. He transformed into a cherished memory, one that countless people pledged to retain.
Not many separations in the entertainment industry conclude in amity. Bruce Willis and Demi Moore challenged that convention. Upon the announcement, Demi refrained from releasing a meticulously crafted official statement. She posted an image of Bruce beaming with their 3 children, embracing them affectionately. Her accompanying text was concise. "We remain a family regardless of circumstances." That brief sentence conveyed more meaning than any news report possibly could. Privately, Demi had been seeing Bruce regularly. They would spend time together in the very lounge where they had parented their children. In these moments, there were no screenplays or formal events, just a common past and silent empathy. Intimate companions characterize this as a form of closure. The affection that originated on film locations such as Mortal Thoughts had transformed into a more refined feeling, deep care. Demi's involvement showed the public that affection does not invariably vanish when a partnership concludes. Occasionally, it changes and intensifies when confronted with adversity. She persisted in supporting Emma, Bruce's spouse, demonstrating that families might grow rather than fracture during hardships. Their daughters, Ruma, Scout, and Tallulah, served as the sentimental link connecting everyone. Demi's message struck a chord because it was not a curated announcement. It was a quiet affirmation that Bruce Willis, the individual beneath the icon, was profoundly cherished. Beneath each image the public viewed, every grin, every short video segment, there existed a more subdued truth. Bruce's life adopted a slower, softer pace. Every day started with light flooding the windows of their California residence, the sound of birdsong, and the chime of ceramic mugs. Emma assisted him in beginning his morning, occasionally humming a melody from his moonlighting period, and briefly
he would smile in recognition. Yet, challenging times also occurred. The condition had started to obscure not just his articulation, but also his understanding. Discussions that formerly moved smoothly now halted abruptly. On certain days, his thoughts would drift, and he would just clasp Emma's hand, allowing the quiet to communicate. Nonetheless, dignity existed in those hesitations. His relatives adapted, motivated not by sympathy, but by affection. They discovered alternative methods of interaction. His children utilized melodies, physical contact, and humor. They held dance parties in the lounge and viewing evenings where vintage home movies took precedence over major films. Bruce continued to react joyfully to recognizable tunes, the blues numbers he performed live, the harmonica melodies that once resonated in large venues. Though his language diminished, his sense of rhythm endured. He would tap his foot, nod in time, and flash the familiar, playful grin that captivated the globe years prior. The struggle was unseen, yet the fortitude was undeniable. For Bruce, this was not a conflict to be won. It was an exercise in concession. For his loved ones, it was an exercise in valuing the present. And within that mutual understanding, they discovered a potent force: tranquility. Bruce Willis's professional life was greater than a list of films. It was feeling made visible. He permanently altered the archetype of the cinematic protagonist. In the late 1980s, as muscular titans ruled the cinema, Bruce appeared shoeless, literally, in Die Hard. He was not perfect. He was not invincible. And that was the very reason viewers adored him. John McClane was injured, wept, and struggled onward despite his suffering. He made jokes while frightened. He was relatable, and that relatability became Bruce's strongest asset. Following this came his adaptability. Pulp Fiction, The Sixth Sense, 12 Monkeys, The Fifth Element. Each movie served as a testament that Bruce could be comical, heartbreaking, bizarre, and gentle, occasionally simultaneously. Reviewers labeled him the relatable star. Yet his colleagues recognized something more profound: a creator masked by straightforwardness. He managed to make intricacy seem simple. To this day, his impact continues to resonate. Newer performers credit him as their inspiration for entering the field. Cinema programs analyze his work. Filmmakers review his portrayals to understand his balance of comedy and sorrow. Yet Bruce's actual legacy extends beyond the cinema. It lies in his interpersonal conduct, the production staff he knew personally, the admirers he paused for, the humility that remained despite worldwide celebrity. He demonstrated that strength was not the absence of apprehension. It was about persisting daily, even when existence felt burdensome. And for that reason, long after the spotlight dims, Bruce Willis will endure as more than a performer. He will persist as an emblem of resilience, empathy, and compassion. Presently, Bruce resides enveloped in love, Not screenplays, not media, but his relatives. His house is more tranquil today. He receives less company and fewer telephone calls. Yet warmth permeates every space. The aroma of daily coffee, the sound of his children's joy, the occasional sound of a pet. On certain days, Bruce strolls through the garden with Emma. He continues to appreciate the sensation of the sun on his skin. He still grins upon hearing his daughter's voices. Melodies are usually playing quietly nearby. At times it is Frank Sinatra. At others it is a soulful, slow blues track.
This is not a departure marked by sorrow or lofty addresses. It is an ongoing farewell, constructed from minor, lovely instances. Each picture released by his relatives conveys the identical narrative: love in motion, an affectionate kiss, a mutual chuckle, a hand placed tenderly on his shoulder. For admirers, observing this is a poignant experience. We matured hearing his voice resonate in cinemas, self-assured, powerful, and rebellious. Today, that articulation is diminishing, yet the individual himself continues to radiate. His narrative shows us that existence's concluding phases need not be somber. They are capable of being serene, full of dignity and thankfulness. The farewell we were unprepared for is in progress, yet it is defined not by finality, but only by affection. Bruce Willis will be perpetually recalled not merely as a performer, but as an individual who existed completely, expressed joy openly, cared profoundly, and offered the globe narratives that will endure beyond him. He demonstrated that bravery is not the lack of apprehension, it is the decision to confront it regardless. He illustrated that fortitude is not invariably bodily. At times, it is the silent resilience of individuals who persist in smiling despite suffering. Illuminated by his inheritance, countless admirers still recite his dialogue, still review his movies, and still applaud when John McClane exclaims his renowned phrase. Yet, away from the cinema, Bruce's true magnum opus is his relatives, the affection that connects them, the solidarity that motivates masses, the evidence that generosity and compassion are the most genuine types of valor. As the final act of his profession gradually concludes, the acclaim does not cease, it intensifies. This is because the public recognizes his contributions and what he persists in offering merely by his presence. Bruce Willis has not vanished. He has merely transitioned from the spotlight into the affections of those who cherished him. His narrative is not focused on deprivation. It is focused on inheritance. And well after the concluding titles scroll, a single fact will endure. Bruce Willis will perpetually be our protagonist. If this narrative resonated with you, if you have ever grinned, wept, or drawn inspiration from Bruce Willis, please use a moment to like, subscribe, and distribute this content. Your support helps preserve narratives such as this, tales of bravery, relatives, and the splendor of an existence experienced fully. Bruce Willis gave us humor, sorrow, and fortitude across many years of memorable portrayals. Today,
It is our opportunity to reciprocate by remembering him, respecting him, and sharing his positive influence with others.